Something is working. I was so excited to be like, this is a fun week and we could be all casual and just, make it be like just carefree, and then technical issues right off the gun. Last week I put my heartbeat up on the screen talking about how cool it was to like show technology and like the things that could be incorporated, and in the process I messed up the video so there was no audio. So I couldn't talk about technology good enough, I guess. I ended up messing it up, and so there was no recording from last week. So anybody that's watching from YouTube, they have to just assume that there was something last week. And it was all about human biology, and it was a lovely, lovely message to talk about. Lots of big words. I enjoyed it, but I'm ready for something fun. I'm ready for something that's a lot less homework driven. Last night, a handful of us sat around here spilling popcorn, sorry Bernita, eating little pieces of chocolate, drinking what's left of, what was in those 2-liter bottles up there, watching a man with a mask fight a giant, watching a man die of drinking poison, watching an ROUS attack someone in a fire swamp. And we did those things without a Bible study afterwards, without a spiritual correlation, without a connection to any kind of scripture at all. We just did it because we're a family that can watch a movie together and have fun watching a movie together. Amen. And that was enough. Like, we had a screen, we had sound, almost like we have right now. And it became fun. And it was fun for the sake of fun, which is what this final installment of Summer School series is. It is fun for the sake of fun because there's a place for fun. And just like in any elementary setting, as an elementary school student, if you remember back that far, every student looks forward to that one time in the day when they don't have to be bogged down in the room or listening to something specific or keeping their eyes straight ahead on a chalkboard. They can go straight to what is fun, and that is recess. Every student looks forward to recess. It's the time of day where you dream about not being buried in algebra or fractions or filling out a map of state capitals or any of that kind of stuff, where you just picture yourself running out the door, straight through the school building, and straight to your favorite spot on the playground or the field or wherever it is that you have your recess. All of your friends are there waiting because you all congregate in the same places for recess. You know you're going to meet by a tree or by a pole or whatever. And you go nuts, and you hang upside down by the monkey bars, and while you're dangling upside down, you're not thinking about circulatory systems or capillary refill. No, you are not. Because you're at recess, you're having fun. You are just upside down for the sake of being upside down. No thoughts of a classroom enter your mind because you are in a work-free, happy place. You're in recess. As a child, there is nothing better during school time than to get out and play. And the schools actually encourage it. It's considered a necessary part of a day to be broken up in the process of the day. You have all of your educational process, and one critical step in that is pulling yourself away for a brief time. Just like a couple weeks ago, we talked about Archimedes. If you remember the story of Archimedes and how he was so obsessed with trying to figure out the weight of a certain thing, and he made himself sick over it until eventually he had to just go take a bath. He had to step away from it and take a bath. And in the process of taking the bath, that stepping away, that recess, was what had a eureka moment for Archimedes. He pulled himself out from the devoted, conscious thinking of a thing to take a rest, to have fun, to just cool off, to do something different. And that made all the difference. Schools know that. They know that that's a part of what has to happen to learn. So they encourage it. It takes you away from that nose to the grindstone classwork, that time of repetitious learning or hands-on lab work or listening to an informative lecture. All those intense learning times are built to cram all this information in. You're taking in loads and loads of information to drive home a new skill or a new fact or a principle or whatever it is. But your brain needs a chance to step away. Not to forget it. You're not going to go hang on the monkey bars and hang upside down so that it all drains out. You don't want it to be gone. You just need sort of a refresher, pull away relaxing time, fun for the sake of fun. Our bodies have been designed to take in massive amounts of information and systems, but without breaks, without opportunities for carefree playtime, our brains can get overloaded and stressed, and our heart rates go to 120 and stay there way too long. They create psychological issues, physical issues, and in turn they make it more difficult to perform the actual processes that we need to process because we are so overloaded. We have to have a time to rest, to play, to have fun. The Bible tells us that there's a time for this. Ecclesiastes 3, the entire chapter of Ecclesiastes 3 talks about how there's a time for everything. And 3:4 says that there's a time to weep and a time to laugh. There's a time to weep and a time to laugh. There's a time to mourn and a time to dance, which was the entire persuasion that Kevin Bacon used in Footloose to convince a town that they should have a dance. That there is a time, according to the Bible, there is a time to dance. Maybe that'll be our next movie we watch. The old version, the Kevin Bacon version. When your town has a family loss, or you've had struggles, or you've had lots of overloading stress as a family or a group, whatever, sometimes it's hard to stop thinking about those things and to worry about the tragedies and all those other things. But the writer of Ecclesiastes wants us to know, okay, yeah, it's okay that you're sad about this thing. It's okay that this thing has troubled you. It's all right to grieve about it for a while. There's a time for grieving. There's a time for that mourning. Let's remember that time is here, acknowledge that time, but then don't hold on to it too long, because at the same time, yes, we should still dance. Even in the midst of us feeling like all we want to do is cry, all we want to do is just sit around and wallow in our mourning and our sorrow, there should still be a time to dance and to laugh and to have fun for the sake of fun. Back when we started this series, I put up a test quiz thing on the website, polling you guys on what your favorite playground equipment was as a child. And I did this because I knew eventually we were going to have this message, and I wanted to have lots of data to pull in to say, 7 of you really liked the swings, and 4 of you really liked the slide, and whatever it was, all the things you liked to do during recess. And I did that mostly because I know that not everybody has the same, nobody grew up in the same environment where you all have the same playground equipment. You didn't all have a slide at yours or a swing set or whatever. So I wanted to know what made your childish memories so fun and pleasant for you and different from other people. Unfortunately, our website didn't get out of recess. It stayed in recess too long. And I only got one response, and we'll share that in a little bit. But I knew that we all had our own different games to play, and for me it was kickball. The thing that I enjoyed the most was kickball. In my elementary school, I went to Sardinia Elementary, which is about 25 minutes that way. And at Sardinia Elementary, there were 2 tetherball poles that were just out in a field. But they weren't being used for tetherball because I guess somebody at some point decided that tetherball was too dangerous. So they took the ball and they took the rope off. But the poles were mounted in like 9 feet of concrete. So they weren't going to bring in a backhoe to dig them out. So they said, let's just leave the pole, because that's better, right? I mean, just leaving a pole there. Well, those 2 poles that were there, one was positioned next to the other one far enough away that it felt like a good distance for home plate to first base. It felt like how far we would want to run to go from home to first. So we had 2 permanent bases already installed. That made kickball half as hard to put together. So we took those 2 poles, home plate, first base, and then just over the course of just knowing where you're going to be at and standing there all the time, you have 2 patches of dirt that get formed in the grass that become second and third base. So you've got the whole thing. And we would go every day after lunch, we would race out to play kickball. Like half the entire grade would go. And we would play kickball. We knew exactly where we were going to play, what positions we did, like how we were good at it. And the part that made it really cool was that one of the teachers would come out with us to act as the permanent pitcher for both sides, and also the umpire. So we got to have just somebody always just pitching. We never had to fight over who was going to pitch and whatever. And he would determine whether somebody was out. We didn't have to argue amongst ourselves who was out. To us, it seemed like the coolest, most carefree, fun thing ever. In retrospect, I think maybe the fact that we were running full blast towards concrete enforced metal poles while a grown man was throwing a four-square ball at us as hard as he possibly could, deciding whether or not we were out on how well he threw it at us, might have been more dangerous than the tetherball, quite possibly. But you know what? We loved it. We loved all of it. It was fun for the sake of fun for us. So back to the quiz. That poor website, it didn't work, but that's okay because I got one response. And that one response was for the merry-go-round. I know a lot of people had merry-go-rounds in their playgrounds. The picture that you see of a merry-go-round here does not look at all like a merry-go-round would look now because they have like seat belts and harnesses now and airbags, and you have to like get in a line and like step up and somebody helps you onto it and they strap you in and they do a safety check around and then, okay, now everybody go half a mile an hour. Hold on tight, and we go around. That is a merry-go-round. The picture that you're seeing is a merry-go-round much closer to my time. Ours was wood and was thicker than that. It looked more like the Wheel of Fortune wheel, which is what I used it for. But this is pretty close. Not a single person in this room, I'm sure, that knows this kind of wheel, this merry-go-round, doesn't have a story of somebody that either broke their arm because they fell off too fast, they were trying to hold on sideways and went sideways, or they got whipped from the middle and hit the metal pole on the way out, or they got their leg stuck underneath. Those things happened. Or threw up. Okay, yeah, that's a thing too. Lots, because you wouldn't stop spinning. You just kept spinning and spinning. And we all have those memories for those of us that went through a merry-go-round like that. But to us, it was fun for the sake of fun, and we didn't think about it like that. But now as adults, in hindsight of playground equipment, and just the same as like with the kickball, I see it as an adult a totally different way than I did, where I remove the absolute pure joy as an adult. I find ways of turning this into something just scary death trap instead of, look how fun that is, you know? Something happens to us as an adult where we remove that just carefree fun for the sake of fun joy. And maybe it's because we want more, maybe it's because we think that we have to get work done and there's just no time for crazy fun like this that could lead to something. I don't know exactly what it is, but we dread more and we fear more as adults. And we convince ourselves that there's something more important that needs to be done. Like, I should be working on my filing taxes or whatever it is because this is just a waste of time for me. I can't even think about spinning around in circles when I've got paperwork to do. We let these things happen where everything becomes a liability or a trouble or a safety risk. There isn't a single thing from playground equipment from the 80s, I think, that has not now been revamped to be a safer version. Metal slides were just way too hot in the sun. Like, if you were wearing shorts and you got stuck, you fried, and no one would come and get you because it would be like, touching lava yourself, and nobody wanted to do that. So metal slides have turned into something plastic and safer, I guess. Teeter-totters would always lead to spinal injuries because the person at the bottom would always just hop off, and then the other person wasn't paying attention and they would plummet and break a few discs in your vertebrae. And even just a big open field, like just playing in a big open field, there could be like little ruts in that field that you can't see just from looking at it, and you go off running and then some kid twists his ankle and then he can't play on the youth football team anymore and the parents are upset. And it turns into a lawsuit to the school because nobody thought to walk the entire field and check for moles or whatever. We find ways of turning these things from fun for the sake of fun into a fear-filled, worry-filled place of danger. And what's worse, as adults, it's like we're always, instead of just the fun as it is, just let's go out in the field and play, as adults, we get to a point where we think bigger, 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 and more for fun. Like, yes, we still would love to have fun, but that fun has to come after a time when we've done something else. Or like, once I get to a point where I can make X amount of dollars to buy a jet ski or a boat or whatever, or a snowmobile, then I can have fun, because I can have the thing, and the fun will come from the thing. And so we look bigger, and then once we have that thing, well, maybe I can get another so many $1,000 and I can buy this bigger version of it, and that will make me have fun and I will enjoy things better. Kids don't do that. The kids would just go out and run in that field. If that's all they had at school, they would just go run in that field every day and they would have a game set up from that field. We used to play a game when I was a kid where you would just stand next to each other or across from each other and kick a ball in the air. And if the other person dropped it, you got a point. If they caught it, nobody got anything. And you just kept kicking a ball back and forth. And it would go on until the teacher blew the whistle and said, stop kicking the ball. That's all we needed. It was fun. It was recess. Simply engrossed in excitement for the sake of the moment. I think the Olympics are a perfect example of how adults ruin things. I'm not a fan of the Olympics. I'm really not, and I could be in the minority on that, like for this room anyway. I think that what it's supposed to be on paper and in theory sounds incredible. It's a beautiful thing. The world is coming together where all the nations can play games together and race and do sports together and do dance-offs together. These are things that are happening in the Olympics. If it were run by 11-year-olds, if the Olympics were a total 11-year-old committee, like they were just little kids deciding what happens in the Olympics, it wouldn't look the way it does. But we bring adults into this, and now all of a sudden, instead of it being a celebration of dozens of nations meeting in one place to have races and dance-offs, we have a global platform, so you have global marketing and global TV positioning and global support from sponsors, and well, we got to show that we're better than this country because we're enemies with this country, so let's make sure our athletes do better, which means starting them when they're in the womb at learning how to do a flip on a parallel bar or something, and raising them to do nothing but the Olympics and training and training and training for their entire lives so that they can compete in this one thing. And if they don't quite win, then okay, well, let's just throw a doping scandal into this, or let's bribe the judges, or let's figure out some other way that we can win gold. That's what adults do to ruin stuff. Why can't we just have merry-go-rounds in the Olympics? Let's just have everybody get on a merry-go-round and, okay, China, you're up. And they spin, oh, that looked great. Good job, China, bravo. And then, okay, how about the U.S.? Let's see them do it. Ooh, they used both directions. That was a twist. We weren't ready for that. And then everybody just celebrates that we had fun together. We all got to be on the same stage together as a country, as a world, enjoying fun for the sake of fun. What happens to create the trouble that makes us get away from that? It's because we lose focus on joy. Joy is something that we can easily let slip away. And yet it's often described as something you can find. Like you're capable of finding joy, right? Like if you can find joy, then joy is never totally gone. It's always there somewhere. You just have to find it. And if it's never totally gone, it can be acquired. We can figure out a way to acquire it. The psalmists and other Old Testament writers often mention joy in different contexts, lots of different contexts. And it was written about all through the Old Testament and the New Testament. God's people had reasons to find joy. Like even in the midst of the desert places or being captured by another nation, there were still times when they could find joy, and they found ways of knowing where to look to find that joy. More importantly, they tried to never lose it in the first place. Like that would be the ultimate goal, is to never have to lose it, to always have that continuous joy, being joyful always. That's something we're called to try to do. So rather than losing it, they found ways of tapping in to finding it on a regular, consistent basis. And rather than me explain it to you anymore, I'm going to take a recess and show you a 4-minute video, because videos are cool, and this one's animated, and you're going to like it.
And that's what biblical joy is all about.
It's not the situation that you are in, but the joy of the future destination. I want to offer a paradigm to you guys. This is something that just kind of hit me a long time ago. I was taking pictures of different interesting things, and I come across a tunnel I took a picture of. The The picture that you see is not a picture that I took, but the same idea is in effect here. That I was taking this picture of a tunnel, and you see the light at the end, and you immediately think of that phrase, the light at the end of the tunnel, and how there's a hope of getting to the end where that light is, because that's your way out of the tunnel. And I was just hit with this realization in that moment when I was taking a picture of that tunnel and the light at the end. You know, that light that you see, that's the same light that's outside right now. Like, out these windows right now is the same sunlight that produces the light that's at the end of that tunnel. So if the thing that you're hoping for at the end of that tunnel is that light, rejoice in the fact that it's all around us all the time. Like, we don't have to think about just getting to the end of the tunnel, but always knowing that we are in the midst of the promise of a final destination. That sun is all around us. That light is all around us. It's something that we can be happy for, we can find joy in, that the source of all joy is all around us at all times because of the final destination that we have to know about. 1 Peter 1, 8 and 9. Though you have not seen him, you loved him. Even though you do not see him now, you believe him and are filled with an inexpressible and glorious joy. For you are receiving the end result of your faith, which is what? The salvation of your souls. You're finding joy in the end result. Being joyful always because we know where it ends. We know how the story ends. We know how it goes. So even in the midst when you do have times that it is okay to be sorrowful for a little while, it is okay to mourn, you still have that joy within you. You don't have to go far to find it. The joy of salvation is always around us. The joy of our hope in Jesus is always there. Find time for that joy.